Hello everyone. This time around we're going to be looking at drawing different shapes and lines in our different programs. So as always we'll start in Adobe Illustrator, and the first thing I want to draw to your attention is the toolbar over here. Now we'll have to go into depth about all the different tools, but for now we're just going to go over to our whatever's in this spot here. Sometimes it looks a little different, sometimes it's one big line, but there'll be one of all of these shapes here. So it might be a line, it might be an ellipse, and it might be a rectangle. So whatever shape is there, just left click and hold on it, and it will pop up with all of your shapes. There is also the shortcuts M, L, and slash key. But for now, let's go over to our line segment tool, and you just click, drag, and then release on the tool that you want. So to use this tool, there's a few ways. We can either left click, drag, and drop our lines. You can do this anywhere and however way you want. Your line specifications will show up in the Properties tab over on this right side in the transform. So now if we go, this is the angle at which I drew that line at, that I've still got highlighted in blue, means it's selected. If we change that to go to 270 degrees, which is actually directly down, it's also equivalent to 90 degrees, but it would have gone up the other way, then that's now a perfect straight angle going directly down. If we change it to 180, that will be perfectly going across, and 0 is the same thing, perfectly across. And then just for kicks, we'll show you 90 is perfectly up. We also have our height dimension and our width dimension. Now if I select 100, it'll change our height to 100. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is to actually click and release on our page. So all I'm doing is just left clicking and releasing, and it comes up with the specifications before I even draw the line. So what I can do is I can click, type in 100 millimeters, and then let's do the same size line as we already have there, and we got 270 is our angle. And then we can click OK. You can leave fill line unticked, and then there you have it. We have the exact same line as we drew initially. Now another interesting thing that is worth noting is that you can actually place lines in very specific locations. So you can do it in the center of a line. As you can see, little pink intersecting lines is what they called pop up, that show you where you are on a particular object or line. So if we select this anchor point, that means the anchor point is the very edge of that line, and we select that, we can then type in, let's go 180 to make a upside down L shape, or actually 0, so it goes the other direction. See, that's a 360 degrees. We'll get our line going that way, and that will make our line go directly from that corner. If we zoom in, it's perfectly on the corner to 0 degrees across, and we can do the same down here on that anchor point, and as you can see, it actually maintains whatever the last line drawn was. So if we go OK, and I will do the same from this corner down. Instead we want to go 270, which is directly down, and now we have a perfect square that's 100 by 100 millimeters. I'll show you one more thing. If I draw a line that goes across that square, it is 100 mil width and 100 mil height, and it's at an angle of 315 degrees. And if I click that in thin space, that line is exactly the same as that line. And there we have our perfectly replicated line. So that's the line tool. Our other tools include the rectangle tool. Again, you can click, drag, and drop to whatever size rectangle you want. If you hold Shift, then it will make a perfect square. And there are a few ways of doing it. If you hold Option, then it will make a rectangle or perfect square if you hold shift as well from the point that you initially clicked, and that can be really handy sometimes. So if I hold just option, then it will just go from that center point. If I hold shift as well, it will make it a perfect square. You can also, I forgot to mention, you can also do the same thing with our line tool. If you click and then hold shift, it'll automatically go to whatever the closest typical angle is. So for instance, here we have a 0-degree angle, here we have our 45-degree angle, there we have our 90-degree angle, and down there we have our 315, and down there we have our 270. It'll flick to those perfect angles, because you can make them in perfect angles. For instance, you could make it 321 or 320. It could be 320.033. But yeah, there we have our perfect angles if we hold shift. And if we hold option, I'll show you, it will go symmetrical. It'll make that line symmetrical from the point we first selected. So if we are at 100 mil, then it'll be 50 mil either side of the initial point that I clicked on. Let's move on now to our ellipse tool. As always, it's the same kind of thing. If you click and let go, it'll come up without our typical options. It'll just come up with width and height. It's because it doesn't really matter what angle our ellipse is on, it's always going to be an ellipse. So if we go 100 by 50, then we have our ellipse. If we go 100 by 100, that'll be a perfect circle. And you can also, like the rest of them, hold shift and make a perfect circle that way, and then drag it wherever you would like. If you hold option, then again it'll be from the point that you clicked initially. It'll make a circle from there, and hold shift simultaneously, then that's a perfect circle from there. Without shift, it's just a ellipse. I will show you the poly tool. If you click and let go, you can choose the amount of sides you want for your polygon. So if you go 6 sides, okay, then it'll have 6 sides. If you go 8 sides, then there is your octagon. That's a pentagon, I believe. Oh no, a hexagon, I think 6 sides is. And then a pentagon would be 5 sides. So you can play around with the different tools. We got our star tool as well, and you can choose the amount of points it has there. And as always, you can change your dimensions over here in your transform menu, and the angles as well. Alright, I think that's it for Adobe Illustrator. Let's move on to Inkscape. Same kind of thing, we got our tools over here. Rectangle tool, click drag and drop, or I think with rectangle tool in Inkscape you have to click drag and drop, and then you can change your width and height dimensions here, as well as same thing with the circle. Click drag and drop. Now it pops up as a square, but that's just the square is the selected area. Let me change our stroke to a color. The square is just the selected area. As you can see, the circles or the ellipses on the inside, and then we can change our dimensions. The R is the radius on the X value, and the Y is the radius on the Y value. So if that's 50, then it will be 50 mil from the center to the top, and if it's 100, then it will be 100 mil from the center to the right side. And you can change your specifications in there. So that's a perfect circle. If you want to draw a straight line, then you just go into our line tool, and you click and click again, and then you just go out of the line tool, and there is your individualized selection of the line. Alright, so that's the simple way of doing it, and there's also this line tool over here. but I find them easiest to use is this one here, so we can change it as well. That's it for the shapes in Inkscape. Finally, let's finish up in LightBurn. Our tools are over here. We'll start with our rectangle tool. It will pop up like that, and our dimensions are all in here. We can change them as we will. We can also rotate over here. Same thing with our ellipse tool. We can make our ellipses and change them as we will in our dimensions up here, and our rotations as well. And then we have our line tool at the top here, where we can click and drop, left click twice instead of clicking and holding. Clicking and holding will do a symmetrical drag of the line. If we click, hold and pull, then it can make a curved line. Alright, so that's our line tool. It will all connect together, and what you have to do is deselect the tool and then reselect it in order to start a new selection. Alright, so that is how to make basic lines and shapes in our different software packages for the use in our laser cutter.